I'm Julie Saunders.
I'm Jan Wilson. Julie and I both have experience as school librarians, and we've worked together as district library leaders.
In each episode, we'll dive into our profession with interviews and meaningful content to inspire you. We're not experts,
but we're pretty close.
The ideas and opinions shared by any host, guest, or listener are their own and do not represent those of any respective school district.
Welcome to Library Exchange. This episode is sponsored by Mackin. For over 40 years, Mackin has provided pre-K through 12th grade libraries and classrooms with access to over 4 million printed and digital, fiction, and nonfiction titles.
The 24-time multi-award winning digital content management system Mackin Via, along with divisions Mackin Library, Mackin Classroom, Mackin Maker, Mackin Learning, and the brand new whole school resource management system, Mackin Vision, help to create a truly unique and robust educational resource company that schools and educators have relied on year after year.
For more information, visit mackin.com today. It's time to record another episode, Julie. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm good to go.
Well, do you know what I would say if you said that you weren't ready?
Probably let's move along anyway. I'm not really sure.
No, I would say, welcome to Library Exchange. I'm your host, solo, Jan Wilson.
Well, I think it's time for our guest introduction. Today, we are joined by school librarian Amy Drake, a former high school English teacher in Iowa. For 9 years, she managed 3 different school libraries simultaneously. This year, she's a K-7 teacher librarian, dividing her week between 2 schools, a K-5 elementary school and a middle school with grades 6 and 7.
Listeners, if you're trying to put a face with a name, you may be more familiar with her on social media as the Snarky Librarian. She shares her insights and knowledge as well as advocating for readers and reading. So welcome to Library Exchange, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a treat.
Let's start by describing your district, the number of schools and enrollment. Any details you'd like to share about your school?
Yeah. So our district it's pretty large. It's considered large for Iowa. We have 8 elementary buildings and 3 secondary buildings. Our secondary levels are from 6th grade to 12th grade. And we are, in the 2 buildings that I am in, my elementary is almost 600, and my middle school, which is a 6-7 building, is 1,100.
Wow, that's quite large for just 2 grade levels.
Yeah, we're busy.
So, Amy, one clarifying question. So, when you say buildings and that your secondary schools are grades 6 through 12, does that mean there's a middle school area and a high school area?
Yeah, so we have a middle school campus. That's our 6-7 building. It's actually brand new this year. We just opened in the fall. And then we have a junior high, which houses the 8th and 9th grade. And they are also on the same campus as the 10-12, 2 different buildings, same campus. And we just did a realignment of grade levels this year. And so that was a shift. That was a little bit of a change. So our high school is now 10-12, which is new. And then junior high is 8-9, and middle school is now 6-7. So that's all new this year.
That'll
Great.
be interesting to see how that works because I've always thought about certain grades being together. That's a topic for another episode.
Yeah.
So splitting time between schools, it may not be unique to you or to some of our listeners, but for us in the metro Atlanta area, this is definitely not common practice. How do you manage the different needs of an elementary and a middle school library?
Well, it took me a long time to figure that out because I was a secondary trained person. And so coming down to the elementary, I had to learn a lot, and I had to learn it very fast. And it was a really just trial by fire. They taught me pretty much what I needed to do. It really isn't honestly that difficult in regards to the age ranges. I pretty much am pretty consistent in the way that I teach the kindergarten as I am the 6th graders. I mean, everyone kind of has the same behaviors. My expectations are pretty much the same. But the challenging part for me was figuring out how to maintain a collection in an elementary because I was not an elementary person. That was really hard. That was really eye-opening. I had to do a lot of work to get myself prepared for developing a collection for patrons I did not know or understand. And the reading just the interest alone, it was a challenge because I did not know a lot. I had to learn it very fast. So it really was just kind of getting thrown into it and figure it out as I go.
So it sounds like there was a few challenges with that adjustment of doing both school levels. How about some benefits to having both levels?
Probably my most favorite benefit is the fact that I get to teach the same students for 8 years. So it is such a treat to be able to have them from kindergarten all the way through 7th grade. And for a lot of these students, especially some of them maybe who don't use their public library, I am the only librarian that they have. And I take that role very, very seriously.
Amy, so speaking of the two levels, how is your time divided each week?
So I'm consistently by day. So 3 days a week, I'm in my middle school, and 2 days a week, I am in my elementary. My middle school schedule is really flexible. I work with my teachers and I plan my own schedule, and I figure that out kind of, week to week, unit by unit, sometimes day by day. It just kind of depends. My elementary is a fixed schedule. And so I have classes on a rotating basis and they come to me as they're special. I see them once every 2 weeks. And so it's kind of nice to have the flexible schedule a few days a week and then a fixed schedule. So I kind of get the best of both worlds. It's really great.
Awesome.
So you have the fixed schedule with elementary, but I believe you'd mentioned something about library helpers in the 5th grade.
Yes.
How does that help you, since you have a fixed schedule, how does that help you manage your library, but also help students become leaders in the library?
Yeah, building independence in the library is so important to me. And it's something that I start right away in kindergarten. A benefit of having students from kindergarten until they're in 5th grade is they know the way I do things. They know the way the library works. And so by the time that they are in 4th and 5th grade, they are really eager to be library helpers. They really, really want to be helpers. They want to help. And then they have that ownership in the library, which builds that independence even further. They take it very seriously and very personally once they start, really participating in what I order and where books are put and how can we create some really fun displays. Like when they get to have a say in that, they get really excited about it and they also want to promote those things. And they also don't necessarily like it if someone messes up their shelves that they are in charge of, so they're very helpful in that. And they also help me with my kindergarten classes. They love to come in and help me. They will skip recess. They will skip their recess to come in because kindergarten's scheduled during the 5th grade recess time. They will check the books out for them especially at the beginning of the year as kindergarten is just figuring out how to do that. They help them find books on the shelf. It is such a help to have 3 or 4 students in when you have that class of kindergarten because one person managing kindergarten by themselves in a library is tough.
Yes,
So it's a
it
huge
is.
help. Yes. And they have to know their stuff to be able to help the kindergarten. It really kind of puts them in that teaching position. And once you teach something, you really know it. And so that gives them a chance to do that.
Oh, I love that.
They have such ownership, and I can't imagine as a kindergartner or a younger student how cool it would be for another student to be like, they don't know the term reader's advisory, but that's exactly what they're doing.
Yes.
How has the Leader in Me framework influenced your approach to teaching and managing the library and the student?
Yeah, so we have a lot of leadership opportunities for students. And so to just give them another opportunity for them to shine and to let their skills show is really beneficial. But it's also nice for those students who need a safe place maybe to kind of flex that independent muscle and leadership muscle without fear of failure. And the library is kind of a good place to do that. I take it really slow, especially for those kids who maybe aren't as confident about putting books away. I don't really want to do that yet. I kind of take it as they're ready for it. And the Leader in Me really does help us kind of have a common language with them, and we can focus on certain steps and whatever our focus is on that week in the school, I can apply that to what we're doing in the library. That just goes hand in hand with what we do every day in the library anyway.
So that's a school-wide framework?
Yes, we follow it district-wide. So we start from kindergarten and we are just now getting into our secondary buildings. And it is just a common language and district. The district is really putting a lot of effort into all of us learning the framework. And it's kind of it's a pretty lengthy process, but it's in really manageable bite-size steps. And it just makes sense. It really does make sense. I mean, these are things a lot of people are doing anyway. People have classroom jobs for their students in elementary. Even in the secondary, you'll find teachers who have classroom jobs for their kids. And so this really goes along with what we do. It just gives us that common language, and we are purposefully and intentionally giving students leadership opportunities so things are more student-centered.
So you mentioned the importance of bookshelf dividers and signage in a recent DEMCO webinar. How do those tools or other strategies help your students become more independent in your library?
Well, and that is one of the things I definitely had to learn for myself because, surprisingly, they don't teach you that stuff in library school. They don't teach you how to use a library in library school. You're just kind of thrown into it. And every library really is organized in its own unique, special way so that it serves its patrons in the most effective way. And so it has been a trial and error trying to find, how the patrons use the library and what signage would really help them. You really kind of have to know who they are and what kind of readers they are and what they enjoy. And, if they are gangbusters about a certain kind of book, then it makes sense to make the signage clear for those books. It makes sense to have certain books, maybe in tubs at the elementary because those are the books that the kids are going to go for. And it makes it a whole lot easier for shelving. And it doesn't take near as much time as the librarian and my clerk. We can shelve really quick. But then it also gives them that opportunity to find things on their own. And once they know, oh, here's the cat section, here's the dog section, here are the horses, they know where it is and they don't necessarily need me to hold their hand every single time. And it is a hard skill to learn how to find books in the library. That's a hard thing to learn. But I start right away in first grade teaching the skills for at least identifying fiction and nonfiction and biography and all of those things. That helps a little bit. And then you just slowly add those skills on so that by the time that they leave elementary, they can get to the middle school and they have some information. Because in our district, once that we get to middle school, boom, we switch to a genre-fied library, 612. And that is a whole nother animal to then teach. So
this is why we often tell our new school librarians to kind of just be a sponge your first year or so when they want to come in and make changes and put up signs, is learn what your students' interests are, which I think probably guided your signage. And the other thing I wanted to comment on when you talk about going into whether it's elementary or middle, you do a lot to build a love of reading among your students. And we've read a lot about how you feel choice is a strong thing in this process. Can you elaborate on that?
I have very strong opinions about student choice. And even as a classroom teacher, that was something that was really important to me. I wanted students to be able to be in control of what they were reading because students convince themselves they don't like reading. And they like it a little better if they can choose and if it's not pushed upon them. But I also am an advocate for a student to not only choose what they want to read, but how long it takes them to read it and when they read it. And I don't put any parameters on what my students can check out in the elementary. Other than kindergarten, I'm pretty careful with kindergarten just because it's hard to manage because they have a hard time understanding how a library works. It takes a little bit of practice. But once we get into first grade, you can pick whatever you want in this library. You have the power of choice. And yeah, you're going to have the student who is not necessarily going to be able to read the Harry Potter book. But that is none of my concern. As soon as they check that book out and it leaves the library, that becomes the student's, maybe they're taking it home and grandma's going to read it to them. Or maybe they are just going to search through it and look for sight words. And maybe that student will also just be like, you know what? I just wanted to be able to check out this big book and I wanted to just carry it around because I want to look like that one fourth grader who is like my hero and pushes me on the swings every day, and that just gives them so much power. It empowers them to then, maybe next time I'll choose something I really can read instead of Harry Potter. But that's their choice. That's them coming to that decision. There are some, I'm still kind of fighting that stigma against graphic novels. Still have some teachers and parents who don't necessarily like it that students only read graphic novels. So that's still a battle we're fighting.
They're still reading.
They're still reading, yes. And I don't care what you read, just read. And I even give the students the opportunity to say, I'm not reading anything right now. That is also a part of choice. Do I have to check out a book? No, You don't. You don't have to check out a book. And that is their choice too. And I leave that completely up to them. I am not in that equation. I'm the facilitator. If you want something, I'm going to help you find it. If you have an interest, I'm going to help you find something that goes along with those interests. If you want nothing, that is fine with me. There's no judgment. I think that's really important too.
I love those strategies for helping reluctant readers, just allowing them choice. It's very simple. Choice, variety, and access. That's what the library is about. As Snarky Librarian, you have
Yes.
quite a few TikTok followers. What do you think?
More than quite a few.
Yeah, quite a
Yes.
few. Couple. What do you think resonates with people about your TikTok videos?
I think when I first started, there were not very many librarians on TikTok. There were several on Instagram, but there just weren't very many on TikTok. And sometimes we tend to glorify things on social media, like all of the good parts, all of the good stuff, and we don't necessarily show our mistakes and the things that we are growing from and learning from. And I think that is something I tend to share, like, hey, guess what? My shelves are a disaster too sometimes. And hey, guess what? It gets on my nerves when I'm in a very loud environment all day and I just need a little bit of peace and quiet. I just think that I am able to share kind of the reality of it, the good, the bad, and everything that goes along with it. But I also think that there are some skills that we did not learn in a library school. The program does not prepare you for what you're actually doing in a school library, like repairing books. And I had to learn kind of on my own and figure it out. And those kinds of things resonate with people because they don't know how to do it. And if you are the only librarian in your district, you don't even have a team to show you. And just having a resource available to give you an option. I get a lot of requests for book repair. I also get a lot of requests for, what can my second grader read? I have a second grader who doesn't really enjoy reading, but I need some ideas. I have a lot of requests for those kinds of things because people don't know. And librarians, you just don't have time. And I publish all of my lesson plans for people to grab. I know people enjoy that. I share ideas in lesson planning because that we don't have time, especially if you are in multiple buildings. So I think all of those things contribute to why people hit the follow button.
I mean, you're relatable and positive in your posts. And just like you mentioned earlier, with no judgment for students who say, I'm not reading anything, I think there's a unique unity in school libraries. There's no judgment when you need to ask a question. You used to do just 3 things on your social media, but I know you've been busy, but I think you're just 3 things. I like that theme.
Yeah, a lot of people did like that. And I try to think of 3 things that are relatable to what is going on at the moment. And sometimes it's really hard because I think, gosh, how many different sets of 3 things can I come up with? And then sometimes they just come to me like, ugh, I need to have that. Need that one. Like the weeding is coming up. We need just 3 things about weeding. You need that. And how to do inventory. All of those things. I think whatever we're kind of doing at that time, we need to have three things.
You make a good point because there may not be other school librarians in close proximity to you, and not everyone has the benefit of support at a central office. So you're educating as well with
great.
those. So, Amy, I want to thank you for joining us today. I think my biggest takeaway is all the different ways that you're empowering students to become leaders and fostering a love of reading for all students.
So
Thank you.
from today's discussion and your TikTok and Instagram videos, your dedication to creating an engaging library environment is very evident. And we look forward to seeing more of your amazing work and the positive impact you continue to have on your students. Please share any last remarks and remind us one more time where our listeners can follow you.
Thank you so much. It is just as amazing to think that you guys actually want to know what I think about things. And that's just mind-blowing. So I appreciate the opportunity to get my voice heard and to advocate for libraries and for librarians. And for those who want to find me, I am the Snarky Librarian on TikTok and on Instagram. I'm also on Opal and Blue Sky. And I do have a Facebook page, but I don't really do a lot with that Facebook page. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Also, you can email me at thesnarkylibrarian1@gmail.com.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
What a delight it was to speak with Amy. We exchanged ideas. Now it's time for the recap.
Let's switch it up, Julie. You go first.
Oh, okay. So, my favorite part with talking with Amy is how she's able to maximize her time between two different locations and how she gets to teach the same students for 8 years. That sounds so rewarding to be able to be part of those students' lives for some of the most important and formative parts of their schooling.
I made a note about that too because she sees them for 8 years, kindergarten through 7th grade. But then I thought, imagine if she wasn't positive and if she didn't care about student choice, that would really impact how those kids view the library. And then she gets to work across developmental stages from early readers who are just learning the alphabet to middle schoolers. She's not just managing books and resources. She's shaping how young people experience learning, curiosity, and literacy.
Absolutely. And she also talked about building independence in the library starting in kindergarten. And those consistent ways in which she runs her library help students learn the processes. And by the time they're in 5th grade, they want to be her library helpers.
Yeah.
And she really promotes student ownership and all the tasks she assigns her 5th grade helpers.
So I looked that up after we interviewed her, the Leader in Me framework, and it has core paradigms to help with student attitudes and behavior. So it's a little interesting that her district has adopted this model, but it is about giving them ownership and independence. And the fact that she has 3 or 4 5th grade students to help with the kindergartners, I thought that was great because I really think you can, whatever level you're at, find a way to have student leaders help you in your library and not just wipe down tables or push the chairs under, but to really give them an opportunity. I mean, Julie, when I was growing up, I had a few opportunities to be a leader, but it was more about getting to go outside and pound the erasers to get rid of the chalk. And do you remember that chalk holder that held like 4 or 5 pieces of chalk to help them draw straight lines? Yeah. Sometimes my teacher let me put nude pieces of chalk in that. So.
Well, I got to be the AV helper who knew I'd be a future librarian, and where I got to weave that film or the movie film through the movie projector. And I thought that I was big stuff. That.
Skill set right there.
Absolutely.
The things you don't learn in library school. Yeah.
That's true. I also loved her passion when it came to student choice. We all know that choice, variety, and access are the key to encouraging a love of reading. And she really makes the point of how important it is for students to have flexibility in choice and the length of time it takes to finish a book.
When she talked about that, I wrote down, learning doesn't happen through shame. She didn't make a comment or a critical comment to any of those students. And she talked about being patient, and because she came from a secondary position and she admitted she had to learn that elementary world. So she took her time and observed how the space was used, what type of books the students were asking for. And so it made me think of this tip. Trends can shift quickly, especially with books in series in our libraries. What's popular this year may not be in next year, and the importance of not locking into permanent signage or systems too early, So that's why I like how she described those tubs or bins that she used to put those popular titles in, because it's easier to access and easier to shelve. And next year when Lilo and Stitch isn't coming out in the movie theater, it can be something else.
All great tips. I am not surprised at all that she has so many followers on TikTok. She's just so relatable. And I just really enjoyed our conversation with Amy during this episode.
Yeah, I mean, her focus of her social media is she shares lessons, and she said that she really wants to give time back to librarians. So it was a great conversation. And Julie, I'm just going to remind everyone, Amy Drake, she is also known as the Snarky Librarian, and you can follow her on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky.
Make sure to visit our website at www.libraryexchangepodcast.com.
You'll find episode notes and links. You can even submit your questions or inspiring stories that may be featured on the podcast.
If you're looking for some swag for your library or book-loving friends, visit libraryexchange.etsy.com.
That's a lot of URLs, so I'm glad you had to say all of that, Julie.
Thanks for joining us. We can't wait to have you back for our next episode of Library Exchange.